Okay, so we're good. Are you good?
I'm ready.
Okay.
This is my big moment.
This ready to shine.
Sam Cooke live.
Woohoo!
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Here we go.
This is Sam Cooke Live.
I'm so excited. I can barely speak right now that you're here.
We're friends. What do you mean?
I'm really excited because you do so much. I mean, television host.
For the children.
Actress. Like, I can't even keep it. Okay, let me try it.
I volunteer at City Kids in Hamilton 7 days a week.
No, you do
I
not.
just came from there.
No.
No, I don't.
But if you could, you would.
Yeah.
And I mean, let me just give you a little background. Television host, I would say comedian, professor. What else do you do?
I make magnets.
You make magnets?
I do. I actually do.
You do?
Yeah, I'll make you some.
I would love that, actually.
It's like a weird little hobby that I like to do where you can just sort of zone out and not think too hard and just like do a craft and be silly. And I used to have a secret flea market booth where I would sell my magnets. Yeah. And
Really?
Around Christmas, they were a real hit for stocking stuffers.
I need to have one of these magnets.
you
Like, I
one.
need to have one.
Yeah.
But I think the most important job that you have is mom. I mean, really.
Mom,
So
yeah.
you really do it all. And I mean, one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on is because I've known you for a really, really long time. And some of the amazing stuff that you have done is just so unbelievable. And you're so funny and you're so talented. And to know that you do all of this with kids and you still are able to do it all. And I just think that is unbelievable.
Thank you for that.
You're
I'm a damn girl boss.
You are.
BAWSE.
That
Boss.
is it. You're a boss for sure. And so I want to kind of bring it back because how we kind of met is through Mohawk College.
Yes, that's right. You were actually my professor back in 2006. Am I dating you and myself?
Or both of us, but that's okay.
And I remember you actually taught a class, I believe it was called On-Air Performance. And the weird thing is at the time I wasn't really looking to do anything on air. But I really felt like your class and I learned a lot and I felt like you and I just connected right away. And I think that's why we kind of like have stayed in touch over time. But I remember there were some tips you would say. And the funny thing is, I remember one class, you said, "Hey girls, if you want to make it big, make sure you dye your hair blonde."
I did not
Yes,
say
you
that.
did. Yes,
I'm a
you
horrible
did. And I was like
person.
looking at my hair and I was like, but I have brown hair. Should I go dye my hair?
I wonder if I was joking.
You must have been joking.
I must have been joking
Yeah.
because on the TV show that I did on YTV, I was the blonde. My friend Trish was the brunette. And so, yeah, so I don't know why I would have said that. So I'm sorry.
I might have also been intoxicated. So, I mean,
So
there's
there's the
that,
real
too.
reason.
I just might have been out of it in class. So, just came from the Arnie, folks.
You know, Mohawk College. Props to Mohawk College.
But I actually, to be real, I felt like I learned a lot in that class. And there were several professors there who I remained great friends with, especially there was another female teacher there that got me all in my feels. And her name was Tracy Kadish. And she still teaches at Mohawk. And she was actually one of the ones who said, hey, Sheena, do you think you should I think you should try teaching. And I was like, oh, my gosh, like I've always held, the professors on such a high regard, and I kind of felt insecure and thought, you know what, I don't think I'd be very good at that. Like, I don't think I'm, intelligent enough or whatever. And I over time I've realized like this is just one thing that I can do. I can spin a lot of plates, and teaching and momming and acting and hosting and voiceovering and whatever the scenario may be. I can do different things. I don't have to just say I just do this.
Well, one of the things, too, is that you're a professor now, but from my understanding, you were homeschooled for a while. Or was it most of your life? Am I wrong?
So here's the truth.
What's the story?
This is the truth, folks. So I grew up in a small town called Port Dover, which I know you're familiar with. You have a cottage there. Mm-hmm. So essentially, I I grew up in a small town. There's not a lot of stuff to do. So in the wintertime, kids kind of get up to trouble. And I remember at the time I was just being a total brat, running around. I believe I got caught breaking into a house.
This is amazing. You heard it here
Yeah,
first
you heard
on
it here
Sam Cook
first.
Live. She's a badass and a felon.
Well, it wasn't really breaking into a house. It was just like, it was a cottage. Maybe it was your cottage. I don't know.
Could have been.
Somebody's. But that's what kids do in the small town. They just like fool around in the wintertime because there's nothing really, there's no movie theater. Anyways, the point is I was getting into a lot of trouble. So my mom said, I'm not really sure what to do with you, but I want you to succeed in life. And she sent me, to a really strict Christian boarding school for all of high school.
Ooh.
So, and the high school system as it was there wasn't set classes. It was more so of a homeschool approach. And we had to sit in little cubicles. It was actually really hilarious. And it was in upstate New York, by the way. So
Really?
I remember, it was actually really beautiful. It was like in the Finger Lake region. It was really, really, really beautiful.
Wow. Were you
Yeah.
scared to leave and go there?
No, not at all. Actually, they were super friendly. They welcomed people like me with open arms. It was just a great place to spend my teenage years. But the weird thing is with it being so strict and so Christian, they didn't allow you to listen to radio. You were not allowed to watch TV. So there's a good chunk there in the mid 90s where someone will make a reference. We'll be just chatting and somebody will say, oh, remember that movie? Like when Super Troopers came out, like I remember my husband talking about it. I'm like, don't know what you're talking about. I have no idea because the place was really secluded. No radio, no TV. You're really cut off from the outside world. And I remember we had done our chores for the day and we did a really good job. And the pastor said, I'm going to take you guys to Ponderosa, which was a big
Oh my
deal. It was
God.
like, damn, Ponderosa.
We're dating ourselves for sure. But Ponderosa was amazing.
Good.
Oh, I miss Ponderosa.
Oh, man, they had great macaroni and cheese.
I'm hungry. Can I just say something? Okay, finish your story about Ponderosa.
Well, I will just say that the end of the story essentially is at Ponderosa. We showed up there and they were playing the radio in the restaurant, and I remember being so music deprived and also so incredibly just pop culture deprived. I remember telling the pastor, I really don't feel good. I'm going to go use the restroom. And I just remember going in, sitting in the restroom, sitting on the toilet, pretending I was going to the bathroom. I was not. I just wanted to listen to the radio and do something normal, and feel normal. So, maybe that's a part of the reason that I got into media and entertainment is because I was so deprived for so long. And by the time I got done high school, I really wanted to immerse myself in pop culture and radio and television and all of these things because I had been so deprived for so long. So,
Which, I mean, is crazy to think about it because you were just saying, it was so strict. And then I go on your YouTube channel and you have some amazing videos up there that are just really you putting it out there.
Yeah.
And, one of my favorite videos that you do is breakdance.
oh, yes.
And
the
it has
breakdance.
over, I think it's like 14,000, almost 15,000 views. And it's just literally you breakdancing
That's
in the
it,
street
baby.
of downtown Hamilton. And
Yes.
just, you are so funny and so talented. And I want to talk about that breakdance video for a second. And if you have not seen it yet, check it out. YouTube.com, I believe it's /Sheena Snively.
Yep.
And how did this video come to be? Because this is a video that everybody talks about.
Yeah, it's it was such a fun video. At the time, that video was made when I was working at MTV, and it was just a fun video to make. I worked with a really great producer at the time, and you know what? We were just like, what's something fun we can do that's evergreen? And
Yeah.
for the folks who are listening who might not know what evergreen is, like that lasts forever, that is not dated or anything like that. So we're like, just go do a dance video. And I'm like, oh, you mean like a music video? Like I'll be saying, and it's like, no. Let's just dance. That's it. So that's kind of how that came about, just sort of out of boredom, and also wanting to showcase Hamilton as well, because I found at that time there was a lot of really cool, and even now, there's a lot of really cool graffiti walls and whatnot in Hamilton.
Yeah.
So it was just kind of also a way to showcase like a different part of Canada other than just filming the same old streets of Toronto over and over again. So it was really fun. Yeah.
No, it's I think that you're so creative, and I want to talk about MTV as well. The talent that you have on MTV. I mean, they really did a great job when they found you and hired you for MTV.
And the weird thing is I originally, when I started out, I wanted to get into set design. That's kind of what I wanted to do, which, was, it seems weird to look at that now, but my dad was an artist, and I was always in his workshop. He was a carpenter, and he was always working with his hands, and he was always pulling me in and helping me work on different projects. So, working with sets and, doing that hands-on stuff felt really natural to me. Anyway, but I just sort of got hired from that point of view. And then at the time in, 2006, 2007, social media was just coming up. People didn't really understand what that was. And not only did people not understand, what social media is, the other question was, how does social media, work as a partner with a radio station or with a television station? How do these two things coexist, and how can stations, meaning, television station, utilize these tools? So it was a really interesting time to start up through that, and nobody really knew what that was, but I was like, hey, I know how to use MySpace. What's up?
But yeah, and I think the thing is that when I look at someone's career, and in terms of social media and television and radio and using these mediums, you're, I believe, kind of like, I was gonna say like the grandfather, but I don't know what term to use, but you were kind of like the queen of, the first to do a Facebook Live, the first to do a Facebook Live show that many people try to imitate but will never duplicate. You are the first to go out there and do these like videos and put them up on YouTube and put yourself out there saying, I'm not just sitting behind a desk being prim and proper, but you're just putting it all out on the line. And it's because of you that people like myself and Will Nash and other media person, not Taylor Kay, I think that we're all doing shows now on Facebook Live because of you. So,
oh, well, shoot.
and I mean,
Put
honestly,
the money in the bank,
there
baby.
you go. Cha-ching!
Anytime I want to feel good about myself, I just need to come over to Sam's house. You're just so
That's
lovely.
right.
That's really sweet.
But
But it's part of the reason why the Facebook Live thing came about for me. And, I did live Wednesday, every single Wednesday for, quite some time, well over a year. Until I had my daughter, and then I was like, life has gotten slightly crazy and I need to prioritize at the moment. But essentially, it was one of those things where it had just been released. It had been released to a handful of people in Canada. Facebook said to me at the time, like, would you be willing to try this? And I had a lot of connections and still have a lot of connections at the Facebook head office. So I was kind of a guinea pig for them in a way to kind of check it out, try it, see if it was clunky, see where things could come and go. But not only that, at the time, I had a digital show. I was doing digital segments for CBC at the time. And they were also saying to me, like, how are you going to promote these digital little packages that we're doing? And I was like, well, I just found out about this Facebook Live thing, and I really want to try it out. So that's kind of how that marriage happened and took place. And look at, now we're still doing this.
we're
It's
still
crazy.
doing it.
It's crazy. Well, this isn't Facebook Live, it's a podcast, but
Now let's bring you back to your days of MTV. What was that like working with Darren Jones? And I mean, you worked with a lot of greats. And so what was that like?
well, actually, I'm going to take your question, rebuttal with a question. I know you were at YTV for a long time. Did you ever work with Darren at
I
YTV?
did. He was I think he was the slime master for a little while on I think he was. It's the show where we slime little kids, and I believe he was on that show for a while. So that's how I knew him. And I've just kind of watched his career grow and grow, MTV, and then I heard him on the radio, and so he's been doing really well, and that makes me happy.
I know this sounds so bizarre, and I think was I was in boarding school, I'm sure, for part of it, but also I feel like I was in the age group just above where that would be, because I remember it. I remember seeing it, remember seeing commercials for it and whatnot. But I feel like at that stage, I had moved on to the Much Music generation.
Yeah.
So I feel like I was just shy. But so the question I have for you is, did you get slimed on this show? Did they ever slime you?
All the time. There was a guy named Mike Beaver, and he was the Punisher. He played the Punisher, and
this is a kid-friendly show, right? Like there's a character called the Punisher on it.
Yeah, exactly. And the Punisher would slime people, and like Mike and my coworkers, Aaron and Aaron Alexander, and they would try and find time to slime me and put slime on my hair. But sometimes they didn't even have to. I mean, sometimes there was we'd have like pools of goo. And, you know, the kids would jump in to like eat 5 eggs out of the pool of goo for 50 points. And the goo would get all in my hair and in my face. And there was a kid one time where I was like, okay, for 50 points, you have to eat as many hard-boiled eggs as possible. Are you ready? Go. And the kid would eat the eggs. And on like the third one, you could see the color on their face going just like, the eggs came back up, landed all over me. But the show must go on. I mean, it was an incredible experience. But for you, I mean, some of the bits that you did on MTV were just like, I know you did so many of them, but some that stand out, and I still talk about this to this day, is the one where you went into a Shoppers Drug Mart. Sorry, my soda stream, that's what you heard there. And you stole a Justin Bieber cardboard cutout.
I forgot about
out
that.
Of Shoppers Drug Mart. And you remember those life-size cardboard cutouts for those that are listening? I mean, it was, how did you even come up with that?
So at the time, I would say this is probably around 2010, 2011, somewhere around there. I don't know if you remember, like people were stealing these Justin Bieber cutouts. Like it was happening all the time. Like people were totally just ripping them off everywhere. And so they wanted to see if I could do it. And actually, like, I've always kind of looked very momish. You know what I mean? So
you look innocent. It's
like,
the word.
yeah, I look innocent. Like this chick ain't in here shoplifting. She's not doing anything. Like she's just in here looking for the Tampax aisle. Like, what's up? So like, they just like leave me alone. So anyways, I mean, you can see the clip on YouTube, but it was really fun. We were just like, let's see if Sheena can still cut out. And the funny thing is, like, it wasn't a setup hoax or anything. We set up cameras outside on Yonge Street in Toronto, pointed it at a Shoppers Drug Mart, and they were like, Sheena, go in and steal it. And Lord of mercy, God bless Darren Jones. He was like coaxing me through the whole thing and telling me to go in and do it. And of course, you know, when the occasion arises, Mama must deliver. So I went into the Shoppers Drug Mart, and it didn't take long for me to steal it at all. I'm talking like, I don't know what came over me. I walked right in, grabbed the thing, and hightailed it out the door, and they didn't even realize what happened. Like, people were shocked. I remember looking at the cosmetics manager. I wish you could have seen her face. She was just like, oh my God, because they don't expect it.
And the best is they have this like view from the top of a building looking down, and you just see Sheena with Justin Bieber under her arm running down the street. Like I cried. Like there's so many good moments from that show. I mean, what an absolute experience for you.
It was definitely the way you want to spend all of your 20s. Like, you know, working at such a great channel like that. And my coworkers were just the best. Like, many folks I'm just like, you know, been lifelong friends with forever now. So.
And you worked with Ron Jeremy. Not worked with, but you did a bit with Ron Jeremy. Oh my God.
Okay, let me just tell you.
Dirty.
Let me just tell you something about Ron Jeremy.
I'm excited.
So Ron Jeremy is actually everything you think about him, and I challenge anybody who's listening to this right now, anything that you think about Ron Jeremy, put that out the window. He is actually one of the most lovely men. He's so nice, such a kind, caring guy. He's a classically trained pianist.
You gotta say that properly.
Yes.
Really?
He's an expert skier. He skis all around there. You would never think, because of his physique and body shape, you would never think that in a million years. But he's also a very good businessman, if you think about it. Like, let's just call a spade a spade. Yeah. The man, you know, did a series of pornographic videos in the 70s and early 80s, and somehow he's managed to propel that into a career where even teenagers now know who he is. to this day. And I mean, if you think about it, what other 70s or 80s, porn star can you really name? It would be hard to name some. So he's a very ferocious businessman. He's very frugal, and he's a lovely conversationalist. Like, I love talking to this guy, and once you connect with him and you become friends with him, you would assume, or people would think, he's a slime ball. He's like trying to grab, He's not like that at all. He's actually a complete and total gentleman. And it's tough because when people talk about Ron Jeremy, I mean, everybody kind of loves him. He's a cuddly guy, but at the same time, people at times can speak very like as if they're better than him or something, like they're grossed out by it's not like that at all. Wow. He's just so lovely. Yeah.
And you have met so many celebrities and interviewed them and chatted with them. I mean, I think was MC Hammer on there.
Oh my gosh, let me tell you about I got stories about everybody.
I saw. Was it Screech, Saved by the Bell?
I actually interviewed Screech, and I actually wrestled him. So for a while, I was doing some wrestling as well. Just one more plate that I've spun in my life.
Wrestling?
Like actually wrestling. Like, I had a character. My name was Sheena. Yeah,
I need to find video footage of this.
It's out there. It's out there.
Okay, I'm going to find it.
This is why I love this show Glow so much, because I look at this and I'm like, where was Glow for me in the mid 2000s? Because I would have completely, totally been on that show. I would have just like totally thrived, because there wasn't at the time, I mean, unless you were a complete, knockout 10 bimbo babe, there wasn't a lot of women like me wrestling who were just like bigger boned women who were like big women wrestling. But I mean, we're talking about at the time, mid 2000s, we're dealing with the Trish Stratus. Yes. But and no doubt she's lovely, but at the same time, it's like I would have really loved that show Glow to be like, holla, Genji Kohan, producer of Glow, I'm here waiting. But so I wrestled Screech. I've wrestled the Junkyard Dog. I've wrestled Virgil, who was the $1 Million Man's assistant, from the 80s.
Oh, yep. I remember that show.
Yeah, so I mean, my wrestling career I'm very proud of.
MC Hammer.
All right.
I need to hear this story.
MC Hammer, it was very funny. So the thing I loved about my specific interview style was they would always send me to do sort of the on the fringe type people. It always made me jealous because Paul Lemieux, Lord God love him, bless his soul, they'd always send him like, oh, Andre 3000 is coming through, like you get to, and I'd be like, oh man, at the time I'm like, I want to interview Andre 3000, or he would get like Jamie Foxx or whatever. So the funny thing is they would be like, Sheena, we're sending you up to Casino Rama in a snowstorm. And you are going to interview MC Hammer tonight. Okay, you know what? I'll take it. Beggars can't be choosers, right? So the thing about MC Hammer is I was given a list of questions to ask him that were written by a writer for MTV.
Okay.
And the writer had written me a lot of questions about religion. And MC Hammer is actually a minister now. He's a priest, I guess those are two different things, but he's a minister now. So he's got a real religious side to him. So all of the questions were like really brutal questions about religion. And actually, I was like, I'm just going to go with it and ask these questions. And the weird thing is I really felt at the time like this doesn't really represent me. Because anytime I've done interviews, I've always been playful, fun. Yeah, we like to joke around and whatever, but I would never be mean to the person I was interviewing. And I really felt a little bit set up in a way. Not set up, I guess that's a wrong word. The writer had just written in a tone that didn't suit my personality. And so here I am asking him all these questions about religion. So I walk in the door. Here's MC Hammer standing here. We've got a green screen set up, and essentially I just started rolling with these questions, and he seemed very tough. And I was like trying to break that exterior, like trying to break in and ask him these questions. And like I said, they're all about religion. And then he just kind of was like, if you're going to keep interviewing me and asking me questions about religion, we're done here. And it was I felt at the time very like, why did I do that? I didn't like the questions before. So if, I would say to anybody who is listening, really make sure when you're putting yourself out there, and I mean, you know this better than anybody, make sure you're being represented to what you feel, especially when you're the face of something, make sure that you're being represented appropriately and what you feel is truly authentically you. Because that was a scenario where I felt very embarrassed and I took the card, I ripped it up, threw it to the side, and I'm like, can we please start again?
You did that.
I was like, we need to start again. And he like threatened to kind of walk out. To be completely fair, he was not a friendly man. Like he was second number one that I walked in the room. He already had this like a barrier up. Like he could have been playful. He could have played around, but that's not the way he chose to do it. But I went all the way up there. So then we ended up like doing just dance moves. And I just cut the whole interview as like a dance. I'm like, forget it. Like, we're just going to goof around.
Now, do you edit all your own stuff? Because all the videos that are up there, do you edit all those?
Yeah, I was actually involved. I don't actually sit in front of the computer and edit those videos. I have two individuals who I met at Mohawk College who are the closest and best friends you could ever imagine. And they edit a lot of stuff for me. And I think it's really important to align yourself with folks who have the same, if you want to get in comedy, folks that have the same personality and sense of humor as you, because that editing process, one little second too long or one little second too short could make or break the entire segment, could make or break the entire joke. So it's really important that you align yourself with people in comedy that are, of the same mindset.
Because I noticed you have been working with CBC and you have, it's so funny. Honestly, I could get lost in watching these videos. They're kind of like almost mini segments called What Sheena Said.
That's what Sheena said.
That's what Sheena said.
Yeah.
And they're hilarious. And some of the people that you've interviewed are big time stars.
Yeah. Well, one of the first ones that you can see on that site is me interviewing Howie Mandel. But the funny thing was, it was at a busy bar. It was the only time that he could meet with us. And he was like everything you would want him to be. Like, Howie Mandel is so lovely. And I'm sorry, but he shook my hand. He was not creepy about it. He didn't do like a fist bump or anything like that. He wasn't weird at all. Like, I was like hugging him and touching him.
And you were also lying on the floor going, and screaming. And if you haven't seen this video, I'm telling you right now, she's lying in the middle of the floor and it's so funny, but you're right. Whoever edited that, they're editing it with perfect timing because it's just so funny and you're so funny. And when you have that formula together, it just makes for outstanding comedy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, my style of comedy at times, and it's very weird because, like, for an example, you and I are sitting here and you and I talk a lot. We're friends. And the funny thing is I'm not always screaming all the time. I just want to make that very clear to everybody that occasionally I know how to shut my trap. But it's weird when you get into an interview scenario with somebody like Howie Mandel, who doesn't know you, and all of a sudden you start acting wild. And by the way, I was 6 months pregnant with my daughter at the time.
Really?
Yeah, I was 6 months pregnant at the time, and it was sort of weird, like. And I mean, I don't know how you feel about this, but I don't really feel like you have to put everything out there if you don't want to. And I talk about my daughter and my kids now, but I did go through a time frame where I was like, I don't want anybody to see my daughter. I don't want people to know I have a son. I want my kids to be separate. And I don't know why. I just went through a phase. Maybe it was that mother like that natural instinct to be a protector of these children. But I just wanted to keep everything very separate for a long time. And
I think if I had children, I would be that same way. I know a lot of my friends who are moms, right away they'll put like, the newborn picture on Facebook or socials, and then you won't see another picture of that kid until they're 8.
Yeah.
And some people are very protective like that. But then there are other moms.
We ain't talking about you, Taylor K. You and your special K's put it all out there, girl.
Yeah, no, Taylor K is another one who's just like on it. She knows what's going on with socials, and she uses her kids and funny, great comedy timing and
it's so hilarious to me because I think she's a great example of somebody who knows how to do it right. Like, it's just the right. I follow her on all of her social media platforms, and she does a really good job at doing a perfect mix of like here's serious me, and I'm going to talk to you about mortgages, and we're going to do that part. But then, once a week, here's a little thing with my kids, and she's 3 girls, right?
Yeah.
And she calls them the Special Ks, and her last name is K, which I think is so damn cute.
Adorable. It's absolutely adorable. I mean,
superstar marketing, by the way.
Right.
Good branding, girl.
Yeah.
This is Sam and Sheena approved.
Cling. But tell me about all the people you interviewed. So you said MC Hammer was a bit on the side, maybe not so friendly. But was there like a disaster interview, or is that the biggest disaster interview you've ever had?
Well, let me tell you a little bit about an interview with a man called Markie.
Really?
Remember that song that was like, "Oh baby, you got what I need." But you say he's
just a friend. He.
Hey man, it's the 90s. It could be a he and a she.
What was it? Say, she's just a friend. Yeah. Okay, so tell me.
You're wrong. It's he's just a friend.
Is it? Oh, jeez.
They say he just a friend. Please tweet Sam and tell her what the appropriate lyric is, because we're lost.
I don't know what it is, but tell me what happened.
So essentially, we were given an address to go and interview Markie, and it was at a hotel downtown Toronto. Super excited to go and interview him. And we thought, you know what? He's on this new show at the time. It was called Yo Gabba Gabba, and it's a kids show. And he does something called Biz Beat of the Day, where he would just go. It's a children's show, which is hilarious, but he would just go and do a little beat. And he had a green screen in the background. So our idea was to go to his hotel, go to the lobby, set up this green screen, have him come down, do some beats for us, talk about Yo Gabba Gabba, talk about his new songs, and call it a day. Like nice, easy, fun, cut it together, choppy, that Tim and Eric style, goofy, and call it a day. So we show up there, we set up the green screen, we're waiting for Biz. He's just not coming down. We call his manager. His manager is like, Biz doesn't want to come down, so can you guys come to his room? So we're like, that's a bit strange, but no problem. We've already been waiting down here for an hour. I said, we'll be up in 20 minutes. We got to pack up the green screen. So we pack up the green screen, which is, if anybody's ever unpacked or packed up a green screen, like it's hard. It never folds down properly. It was just a nightmare. So we finally get up to his room. We walk in, and Biz is laying on a king-size bed in the middle of the room, and he was just like, what's up? Like, talking like, hi, who is this, MTV? Like, he was just out of it. Like, what's going on? We were just like, okay, so we're going to set up the green screen here, and he just refused to get off the bed. He would not get off the bed.
That's even funnier.
He just stayed. So we started to set up the green screen, and he's like, hey, what are you doing with that green screen in my room? And we're like, well, we've been emailing with you, and we're going to do this green screen bit. And, he's like, I changed I don't want to do the green screen. You got to come over here and do the interview on the bed.
No.
Yeah, it was just so
Did you go on the bed?
And weird. So we went over, set up on the bed, everything. We just interviewed Markie on the bed. And then I think we ended up making a joke of it. It was like Biz on the bed or something. We turned a negative into a positive. But it was really weird. Like he was like, if you see him like talking in an interview or whatever, he's slightly off kilter a little bit.
But I love this, that you did an interview on a bed with him.
He refused to get out, but it was also like slightly creepy. And then we packed up our equipment and like packed up our green screen. We were getting ready to go, and he was essentially like, why do you still come back down and lay on the bed? Like, you are very, very forward, Mr.
Wow.
Bismarck.
That's insane.
But the interview was weird. It was like he was just like talking like this, like slurring through the whole thing and whatever. But it ended up like MTV is not like it is in the States. MTV has a talk television license in Canada.
Yeah.
So that's why on MTV in Canada, you see a lot of reality shows, and you see, because they don't have the licensing. Much Music has the Canadian license to show music videos. So therefore, that's why you see all this comedy there. So with it being a comedy channel and a talk television station, it actually made for great TV. It was like, but it was one of the weirdest scenarios I've ever been. I was like, this is just so bizarre.
That's
So
the
weird.
best story. I love that story.
Yeah.
Biz on the bed.
I'll never forget it. It was such a weird thing. Like, it was just like lugging these green screens around, getting hit on by Biz Markie. Like, nightmare.
I love it. And now you're like a mom and a professor.
Yeah, I'm like so proper now. Like, watch out.
Now, what's going to happen when your kids get to the age that they're going to go on YouTube and they're going to see mom, like, with Ron Jeremy looking at,
I have thought of
Bones
this.
or whatever. What were you guys looking at?
Oh,
with Ron Jeremy?
we went to. Do you remember? It was called the Body Exhibit. I think it was called.
Yeah, at the ROM.
And yeah, it was essentially really. No, it was called Body Worlds, and it was essentially people's bodies like completely stripped down, so you could see the bones, you could see the muscle structures. Like, it was really weird but cool. So Ron Jeremy and I did several segments with each other over time because, like I said, him and I sort of became friends, which is really weird to say that. And the odd thing is we were trying to think of different things to do with him to showcase how awesome of a person he is. So, we were looking for things to do in town and we saw Body Worlds were there. So I was like, how great would this be for him to go to Body Worlds? But he was actually he was such a trooper because I know he was feeling very nervous about going there because with it being connected to, there's like a science museum, he's worried about people thinking like Ron Jeremy's around a bunch of kids. Like, he has to be careful about that stuff because of what people think about him. And I mean, like I said, it couldn't be farther from the truth, but one of my favorite memories and about that specific day is Ron Jeremy also he's got narcolepsy. So he just randomly falls asleep all the time, which is hilarious. Yeah. Like, he doesn't care where he is. He'll just go to sleep. Like, we could just be talking like this and and he's out. And he'll just fall asleep on you. And then he'll wake up about 30 seconds later and he's right back in the conversation. It's actually really hilarious.
Wow.
It's really funny. So I remember we got to the parking lot of the ROM and he was sleeping. And so a friend of mine, we happened to have a bottle of Bailey's in the trunk. So we were like, let's just go drink some Bailey's while Ron sleeps.
Happened to have Bailey's.
Mm-hmm. I might always carry alcohol around with me. I mean, not at Mohawk, though. Never.
No, never when she's teaching.
No. Actually, I'm not that drunk teacher. I'm not saying there is one at Mohawk, but I'm saying I think everybody in high school had that one teacher that was like always drunk all the time. But that's not me. People just think I'm drunk, but I'm not.
They think that with me sometimes, too, so...
It's like, she's out of it. It's like, we just tired.
We're exactly.
Dealing with like 500 students a day, it'll knock you out.
It will.
I actually, side note, I went on a boat cruise once in Port Dover for a wedding, and I had one drink, one glass of wine, and I went up maybe an hour or two later to go to the bar on the boat, and the captain of the boat came over and was like, I'm really sorry, ma'am, but we have to cut you off. I was like, bitch, please, I had one glass of wine.
Oh, that's so
and he's
funny.
like, don't take it personal. We just have to be very careful. People don't fall overboard. And I'm like, I'm not drunk. I'm just loud and stupid.
That is phenomenal. I love that.
What?
I love being loud. Do you love being loud?
Yeah. I mean, you know what? It's part of my personality. I'm just used to it.
I like being loud and obnoxious. It's just, it's amazing.
Maybe that's why we get along.
Probably.
But I don't think of you as loud and obnoxious. But I think when you're a professor, lecturing, I find is very similar to stand-up comedy. Like, you have to have a certain performance element to be able to do this.
Yeah.
That's probably why I enjoyed your classes so much.
I try to make my classes fun and put an element of comedy in there because I just know that as a student, it's just sitting there is so boring. So so having you as a professor must be unbelievable because you are just so naturally funny and naturally talented. And
well, I think the weird thing is people see me and I'm like a big woman. So the funny thing is they see me and they don't think I have this energy level. But for some reason, I've just always had energy. Like, I walk around the classroom. I love to stand. You'll never see me like sitting and teaching. Like, that doesn't happen. Like, I'm just always standing, moving around. It'll be a 4 or 5 hour class and Mama's still walking around hustling. Like, that's just the way it is. But
oh, you didn't answer the question about the kids. One day your kids are going to see you. That's what, and then we start talking about Ron Jeremy, but I want to come back to that. Are you ever going to like try to prevent them from watching those videos, or are you like?
It's so weird because I've thought about this quite a bit, and it's interesting that you bring it up. The stuff is out there, and I mean, if my kids see it, I'll just embrace it with them and explain, what. And plus, I feel like when they get old enough to know, the landscape of how we consume media and entertainment is going to be so different.
Yeah.
Like, we're already seeing the 15-second video will get way more hits than the 5-minute video.
Yeah.
So it can be really tough. I feel like they may not have the attention span to maybe sit there and watch a 3 or 4 minute clip. But they're going to see it. So I feel like I'm just going to tackle it the way I always have, which is just embrace what I did, be proud of it, and also explain to them that they can never do that same thing. Do not go into a Shoppers Drug Mart and steal a cardboard cutout
Exactly.
of whoever the next pop celebrity is down the road.
Now, one of the segments you did was, and I can't remember the exact name of it, but it was when you were asking celebrities about the most famous person they have in their cell phone. Do you remember doing that bit?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
So I'm just curious, as I open my Soda Stream again, that's what you hear. Who is the most famous person you have in your cell phone?
Oh my gosh. That's really interesting. I kind of think about that question. So now I'm on the spot with this, which is really
I'm trying
great.
to think of mine.
I for sure I have all of the MTV hosts in my. So you know what? Maybe I can say Dan Levy. I think I have his cell phone number in there somewhere, and Jesse Cruikshank, who is on the who would be. And I also have, I think, Brent Butt's phone number.
Oh, really? Oh, he's so funny.
Yeah.
He's very funny.
I miss the days of the Corner Gas. It was a great show. I really hope he comes back with some new thing because he's just such a hilarious guy.
Now, what about stand-up comedy? Have you ever thought of doing that?
I have actually tried stand-up a handful of times, and I feel like I would be better at it now because of teaching. Because like I said, teaching is very similar to stand-up. Like and especially as a teacher and a professor, you're no longer, battling with just them learning the content. You're now battling for their attention.
Yeah.
Because if they're not into what you're talking about, they'll just look at their phone. But I think I've really learned a way to grab people's attention. And I just feel like if I gave stand-up a second chance in terms of like trying to do it full time, I feel like I would be much better at it now. It's just tough. It's tough to go do those gigs and stuff, and hustle around. And I'm in Niagara Falls this weekend to do like a 20-minute set or whatever. Like it's a commitment and hustle.
And also too, I think that you would have a lot of material to talk about now, like being a mom as well. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of funny diaper things you could talk about.
Oh my gosh, I've often thought it's funny. I have a little in my phone. I actually have a notepad thing that's like, oh, if I ever do stand up, this is what I'm gonna write, and I just put my jokes down, kind of like oh my god, what's wrong with me? From the Fashion Police. Oh my god, what's her name? Older, she passed away. What is?
Hold on, Joan Rivers.
Joan Rivers. What is wrong with me?
I know,
Why
it's okay. I couldn't remember
I have like 3
either,
books
so.
of hers. Anyways, Joan Rivers used to keep all of her jokes in an old desk in like in a cataloged fashion. And anytime something happened in the news with a certain celebrity, like say David Hasselhoff or whatever, she would go and look for her H and she'd find Hasselhoff and she'd pull out all of her jokes about David Hasselhoff. Well, I kind of look at this the same way, but it's like on my phone. So I do something very similar. So I often think that, if I was to do stand-up, I do have a really good arsenal there of things that I've kind of been building over time. Like, especially you're right, motherhood is such a huge thing. Like, it's so funny for me when I watch comedies, like movies, because anytime a woman goes into labor in a comedy video, the first thing that happens is the woman's water breaks, right?
It does.
That's what happens. But that's not actually what happens like when you're actually like having a baby. Like it's not like water breaks and the baby like comes out. Like there's like a process of things, there's this thing, and I'm just going to say this is kind of gross. But there's this thing that comes out of you first, long before the water breaks, which is called a mucus plug. Like, why doesn't anybody ever talk about, look at her face. Look at her face.
From someone who's never had a baby, I'd like to say, ooh. Sorry.
Sam, what? Oh my god.
It's a plug that has mucus on it?
It's like, do you want me to explain it to you?
Kinda.
But what I'm saying is like, why isn't anybody...
Okay, we got time.
Why isn't anybody ever like, oh my god, my mucus plug just came out, like the baby's coming. everybody goes right to the water break. The water break happens after the mucus plug comes out.
What does it look like?
It looks
Like,
it
don't
looks
tell me
like
what it looks like.
you would think.
But is it like
It's
that?
it's
stuff?
it's stuff that
Look,
comes
I'll
out.
look it up on Google.
Maybe actually
Mucus
don't look it
plug.
up.
No? Okay, so hey, you know what? I learned something new today.
Yeah.
The more you know.
The more you know. Forgot about that.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so there's a mucus plug, water breaks, baby. Got it.
Yes. Contractions are in there too.
Contractions.
You know, there's a process. It's like a 2-day ordeal. Is what it is.
Whenever I wake up and I go, my life is not complete because I don't have children and I can't have children, and I start to cry, I'm going to think of mucus plug every time and be like, I love my dog. I love my life.
That'll get you back in check, girl. Think about it. Oh man,
Honestly,
but it's so funny. It cracks me up. So there's definitely some things that I think about, especially about motherhood and comedy and how, there's so many jokes there,
I think you should do it. I mean, I would come to your show, and there's so many people that know you. They know even of you.
Mm-hmm.
They've heard your name. They've seen your work. And students like now,
Mm-hmm.
so students who are in their 20s now know you. People that are, my age know you. And you are like a Hamilton staple.
Yeah. Well,
and
it's not off the table that I would, like, it's not off the table for sure.
But I'm so excited because I feel like you've done all this work up until this point, and you had children, but I feel like that was part one, and that part two or phase two of your life is just coming. And I feel like something's a brewing, and you're just kind of not telling anybody yet, but is there a part two that is coming?
Well, I think that I'm never opposed to trying or doing new things, especially when it comes to social media. I'm always looking to see what is that new now next thing. Like, I'm like looking at all of our students right now. A lot of these, folks are using TikTok, which I think is like it's so much fun. Like, I'm watching folks make TikTok videos and I'm just like, oh my God, I want to do this. But then I talk to some of my students about it, and they're like, oh, that's too young, Sheena. You shouldn't do that. It's for 13-year-olds. And I'm like, stop it.
I know.
But I think whatever the chapters are that are coming up next, and I do have a couple of things that are irons in the fire, but I think whatever the chapters are that are coming up down the road, I'm always thinking digitally now, as opposed to, I really used to think about, that process of making a proposal and a treatment, building a script, going to a network, pitching. Like, this would be the plan. This is Sheena's plan 5 years ago of my thought process of how television and even radio and things like that work. But I think I'm thinking digitally now. I'm thinking about how can I make that my new career? And especially right now at Mohawk, which I'm really excited about, we're running all of these YouTube creator camps, which are really great.
You've got like some amazing YouTubers as well.
Great YouTubers coming in. So the YouTube camp specifically, we have Breaks Eduardo coming in. He's a Hamiltonian right here. He lives amongst us.
Love that.
This kid's got 7.5 million subscribers on YouTube, and he's just doing this stuff out of his basement.
I think it's awesome.
Just great. And another guy as well who comes in often to some of my classes, and his name is 09 Shark Boy. And again, another Hamiltonian that, makes gaming videos out of his closet and videos about cars. And I just really think that we need to shift our mindset. I don't think TV is dead. I think the way we consume TV and consume content is different. And I'm so glad Mohawk is on board, with supporting these kinds of initiatives. Like, they're just like, green light, go, like, let's do this. And I think it's just really important that, especially for the students, that we're providing for them, what is relevant and what is new now next, as opposed to teaching the same thing over and over again, right?
Who is your favorite YouTuber? Do you have someone that you go to? Because, Joe Rogan.
Oh, yes. He's
great.
We
love Joe.
Yeah. And he's one of these folks. Joe Rogan does a really great job of doing his podcast, but also providing the visual content across his other transmedia branding that just really... he's one of the guys that I look to and I'm like, yeah, you guys are doing a good job. Also, the Nerdist as well. They do a great job of podcasting and also making video content too. So I think we just need to start thinking more multi-platform instead of thinking about like, how do I specifically make Instagram really great? Well, you know what? Instagram's big now, but Instagram might not be big
Yeah.
tomorrow or next year or whatever. So I think it's important to always be thinking of that next platform and how do I still make one piece of content that's within my branding, but still put it over all of these platforms so that it makes sense for those viewers. Because for an example, like when I make something for Facebook, I know that I'm dealing with an older demographic.
Right.
So I will try to, cater to their needs. Whereas when I put something on Instagram, it's a little more fun, lighthearted,
Like,
lighthearted, and a little bit more fashion forward and stuff like that. So it really depends on what the audience is that you're dealing with at the time.
now, for people that, maybe don't know you personally like I do, I'm going to ask a question on behalf of them because I want your answer. When you are like me, and for years I wanted to do a show like this, and I talked about it, wanted to do it, never did it, was scared to do it. And there's a lot of people out there that are like, I have some really good ideas. I could do a show like this. What advice do you have for those people that, were like me up until 2019 and thought I could never do this? No one's going to watch. No one's going to care. And I finally just did it. What advice do you have for those people that have an idea that are just too scared to do it?
Get your ass out of that creative purgatory that you be living it. I mean, I know that sounds really blunt, but you really have to listen to your inner voice. If life is so short, obviously this sounds like cliche advice, but like you got to just try stuff. And if you're feeling really insecure about maybe going live on Facebook, well, create a dummy account. Create an account where you have no followers, some dumb thing, testing Hamilton girl 0389 or whatever the situation is. And you know what? Try it. Do a couple of them. See how you look. Figure out what lighting works best for you. Figure out what room gives you the best acoustics, the best sound. Like I'm sure, like this room, for an example, I'm sure it took you a couple of takes to figure out where am I going to do this?
Yeah, I mean, it was nerve-wracking because I was like, oh, what if this background doesn't look good, or people make fun of my flower, my chairs, and I was like, oh, what if I don't look good, or what if, my makeup doesn't look right? So it caused me a great deal of anxiety, and finally I just said, don't care. This is it. I'm putting 2 chairs in this room. This is a very small little studio office that we have, and I just did it. So I think that, for me, telling people is just to try it and do exactly what you say, test it out. And even if nobody watches, just put it out there. I mean, you've got thousands of people subscribed to you on YouTube, and you've got, hundreds of thousands of views. So like I look at someone like you and I'm like, oh, I can't have her on my show because she's got all these subscribers and views, and I've got, but at the end of the day, I mean, I think it's because you put yourself out there and people are drawn to that. And I'm just so proud of everything that you have done, and that, and I hope that you continue to just keep making us laugh because we need more people in the world like you.
Oh my God, I'm going to cry right here.
We do.
Like I said, every time I need to pick me up, I just need to come over to Sam's house.
But it's true. I mean, if anybody knows how to make someone laugh and feel good, I've never heard you say a negative thing about anybody. You've never spoken bad about anyone. And it's just, you're always full of positivity. And I think that that's super important. And that is what's going to, keep you in your career going, because you just need to be that positive light for people. And that's what you are.
Thank you. Well, I especially think, and I mean, I guess this is patting myself on the back a little bit in terms of like, especially if we want to talk early career, the MTV days early on when I first started being on air. And I know that this sounds really weird to say because now we've got Melissa McCarthy, we've got our Rebel Wilsons, there's, tons of plus size women who are coming up in the ranks and are doing awesome things in comedy and TV and whatnot. But I would say the body representation was very, very low in 2006, 7, 8 when I first was coming up through the ranks. And I've always really appreciated MTV for taking a chance on somebody like me, because there really wasn't a lot of women who, and even to this day and age, it can be challenging to see where do the people like me fit in. And this isn't a knock at the social. I have friends that work on the social. I have friends who host on the social. But I will say, it's like you take a show like this, for an example, we're seeing the same body types over and over. We're seeing the same hair colors over and over. We're seeing the same things. And like I said, it's not a knock on the social directly, because it is a great show and it is really about the conversations that they're having. But if we're talking about body representation, it can be really hard, and it can be tough when you don't see people like you out there. And I mean, early on, I felt like I was a representation for a market that people just weren't. It just wasn't there. It wasn't there.
Yeah, and I agree with you. And I think that's what's so amazing is that, you didn't care what other people said or thought, and you just went and did you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I think so many people are drawn to you, because you're authentic. Because I remember going to auditions, back in, the 2000s, and, they would say to me, at like 100 and I think I was like 20 pounds at the time, that I was too overweight for any parts.
It's awful.
And you're like, what? And so I wish that I just, said, I don't care. Like, this is me, take it or leave it. But, these girls, they think that you have to be this perfect size, perfect hair, perfect makeup. And you just have to be you.
Yeah.
That's it. Absolutely. You just have to be you in any way that you come. You just have to be you.
Yeah. You be you, guys.
Yeah.
You be you.
You be you, and good things will happen. Now, I want to ask you before you leave, I want to say thank you, first of all, as well, to my co-executive producer. Thank you so much, Robert Kerr. I have a Patreon account, Patreon/SamCookLive, and he is one of our co-executive producers. So thank you, Robert Kerr. Also went to Mohawk College as well, I will say. But before we end, I want to ask you to name 3 things that you, Sheena, are grateful for.
Oh, wow.
It's a tough
That's
question.
A big one.
I'm going to drink my water while you decide.
I feel, first of all, oftentimes we wake up in the morning and we look at the news and things can be so dreary. So I always say I'm very grateful for where we were born and raised in Canada. I feel so lucky. Like I said, waking up in the morning and reading the news sometimes just makes you think every day, like, thank God we live where we live. And we have the resources that we have. So obviously, I'm always grateful for that. And I'm also grateful for the Fast Eddies in Brantford, because I went right from Canada, right. If I'm being real, I really enjoy the cheese fries. Hey, man. Which brings me into the third thing that I'm grateful for, processed cheese. Number 1, living in Canada. Number 2, the Fast Cities in Brantford. And number 3, processed cheese. Not my kids, not my husband.
No.
Family, friends,
It's all
Sam.
about the food.
No.
Love
processed cheese.
I love it, and I love you. Thank you so much for
problem.
coming on my show. You are absolutely the best, and I wish you so much joy, happiness, and success in everything that you do. And thank you for being a part of my life and now yours. I appreciate you.